Tom, we got a new municipal election poll out today. Not a whole lot has changed. What do you think from what you've seen?
The lead in all the polling has given an advance to Soraya Martinez Ferrada of 8 to 12%. And so we're still in that range. I think that people should be prudent, though, because if you just take her number, and 26, and you take the number for, of course, Luc Rabouin from Valérie Plante's party, the two of them together are 44%, not even taking into account the other candidates. Guess what? There's not going to be a 44% turnout in this election. So some of this stuff is theoretical. It's people, usually in my experience, saying that they're very fed up of orange cones and everything that represented the time that Valérie Plante stayed in City Hall. So they want change, fair enough. But then they've got to do something called voting. And a lot of people don't bother doing that. I'll say a couple of other things about how the campaign is shaping up and the differences between the two parties. As you know, Soraya's party is essentially based on the remnants of Denis Coderre's party, a lot of very good, strong people who have been around the table. They've got deep experience in City Hall, so that's an advantage for her. The advantage that Projet has is their deep roots with the union movement. That always involves organizers, community groups. That always involves organizing. They have what we call in politics a good ground game. So they've got boots on the floor. They've got people putting together lists. They've been door knocking. They've been identifying their vote. And then they're going to have quite a few people trying to get out the vote. All that to say, don't think for a second that this thing is already decided. I believe that people want change so much. That's the number one ballot question, and that indeed Soraya Martinez Ferrada will be the mayor, in a couple of weeks. But as I say, Aaron, this is not decided yet, and there's still a lot of work to be done. So I don't think that anybody in either camp is going to be giving up because they both know that it's still a steep hill to climb.
But let me ask you something else, Tom. This is not being talked about maybe necessarily in Montreal. This whole idea of Canada Post and the strike and people not knowing where to go, if they have to go, is this going to be significant?
It is, and it's tricky. I live in a little municipality, and they hand-delivered everything to all of us. And it was interesting because I didn't even know that, for example, the advance poll is only in the afternoon. So that Sunday, I'm going to make sure that I'm around in the afternoon and not doing something else because I need to go to the advance poll because I'm going to be leaving otherwise on the day of the vote. So, it is a bit tricky that people haven't got that information because it's the number one reminder. You actually need to show up with the thing to tell you exactly which poll you're in. So, yes, it's very important. The cost of having this stuff delivered in Montreal outside of the post office would be about $3 million, we are told, in today's papers. But it seems to me, I don't know about you in town, but up north where I am, we have these little boxes that they put your mail in. Those have been back functioning for several days already. So I suspect that people should be getting these things in the mail next week. It's not a lot of heads up, but at least it'll be in time both for the advance poll and the main poll on the 2nd.
All right, let me move on from that and talk about the bigger story here federally, this idea. And we heard Mark Carney today, I don't know if we can use the word cagey, describing what he plans to do as far as Chinese EVs are concerned, what Canada will do if we do anything. He's in a bit of a tough spot here, Tom, right? You have canola and pork farmers out west, and you have the auto sector in Ontario. You have Doug Ford trying to push all the right buttons with Mark Carney. What do you think happens here?
I mean, I'm going to make a big leap over to the F-35s and to say it's the same thing. Carney's trying to keep everything on the table. He doesn't want Trump to know exactly what Canada's next move is going to be. Since day one in this, a lot of observers and experts have said, look, the easiest thing in the world is he's putting 50% on our lumber. Let's put an export tax of 50% on all of the petroleum products and the gas we sell to the States. But again, at some point, you have to listen to what Carney said this week. He said there is a time for fighting and there's a time for talking. He says right now we seem to be on the verge of a breakthrough in the negotiations. We're not going to upset that apple cart. I think that's wise counsel. He's showing the deep experience that Canadians liked when they voted for him. But at some point, push will come to shove. And Canadians are going to insist that, okay, it's game over. We went in. The reason we can't buy a high-quality 35,000 Canadian dollar Chinese electric vehicle is because we said that we don't want them here in Canada. We put a 100% tariff on them and told the Chinese, take a hike. And then the Chinese said, okay, tit for tat. We're going to tariff your canola and other agricultural products. You can't do this one way, but we did it before Trump was reelected. We did this. to help the Americans. They wanted to keep out the Chinese electric vehicles. They hadn't had time to tool up. They weren't competitive with the Chinese, and they came up like we did with all these bogus arguments. Oh, they're being unfair. It's government subsidized. Hey, have you noticed how many tens of billions of dollars we threw at these bogus battery plants that we were going to have in Bécancour and on the south shore of Montreal, the Northvolts? They're all falling apart. All that money was thrown into the dump. And it's a total loss. But again, tens of billions in Ontario, too, for electrification of vehicles, building the battery plants. But it's complete fake. So at some point, we've got to look at ourselves and say, okay, do we allow the Americans, after we gave them everything, all they gave us back was a smack in the head? Do we allow them to keep walking on us that way? Or do we finally start saying, let's go talk with China, let's go talk with India, let's work with our European partners, find new trade routes? Carney has sent his foreign affairs minister, who I think is quite capable, Anita Anand, to China to prepare his meeting with President Xi Jinping. I think that's a very good move. And he's letting the Americans know we have other options, because we do. But of course, we had this unbelievably great trading relationship on both sides. The Americans did very well in their trading relationship with us and vice versa. But the Americans think that it's always about them and they can always get whatever they want no matter what. Well, this is what we're going to have to teach them at some point, is they can't,
Well, look, here's the question, though, right? And there's a couple of parts to this as well, obviously. Whatever we do will reflect on the U.S. because they have that 100% tariff already in place. So there's the risk, perhaps, of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, agitating them because we're going against something they're already doing. You heard Doug Ford.
What could be worse than closing down the Stellantis plant and putting 3,000 families out of work?
Understood.
With no job?
Yeah, I get it.
But they're already doing it. You have to listen to what they say, Aaron. Howard Lutnick said he wants to destroy the Canadian automobile industry. So let's start with that as a simple reality. And then 2 days later, Stellantis was shutting down a major plant. And that's where we are right now. So do we keep helping the Americans, keep out the Chinese, or do we start saying, you know what, even if we can't get the jobs, at least Canadians are going to be able to buy a very high quality, inexpensive electric vehicle because the Chinese are way ahead of the Americans, and let's stop buying the clunkers from south of the border.
So is that when you heard Doug Ford yesterday say, enough of this, as you're just suggesting now, of, putting up with what the U.S. is doing to us, but then you heard Mark Carney say there are times to, talk tough. What did you say? There are times to be tough and time to talk, and right now is the time to talk.
Yeah, and I give him the benefit of the doubt on that. I'm one of the people who think that Mark Carney has the ability to carry this off, probably the only person in Canadian politics who does. Certainly not Pierre Poilievre, who would have been able to do any of this. So I'm more than willing to be, like a lot of Canadians, very patient with Mark Carney and listen to him. But at some point, you've got to take the gloves off. And it's not just elbows up, it's gloves off. And say, okay, this is where we are. You brought us here, Trump. Nobody else forced you to do this. We had the greatest trading relationship in the history of the world. And like the spoiled child that you are, you're destroying it. Fine. We've got other options. We're going to them.
Okay. Last thing really quick, if I can squeeze it in, the announcement yesterday on that bail reform bill from Mark Carney as well.
Right.
A lot of reaction both ways on this one, including from the Canadian Civil Liberties Association, Tom.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, that's their lot in life. That's what they do for a living. But at some point, the woman who just got killed in St. Jerome, there's going to be a march for her over the weekend. This fellow had been convicted 19 times, had gotten the worst he ever served was a few months in jail. He was convicted at one point to some 40 months, but of course, as usual, you just do a fraction of that. And he had been convicted 16 times of breaking his bail conditions when he was let out. And then finally, on the last time, he killed. That's what Canadians are looking at. So I'm a progressive. I'm a lawyer. I understand the civil liberties argument about this. I don't want anybody to ever have to face a presumption of guilt. But at some point, the average Canadian, again, is looking at this and saying, this is complete and utter madness. This is a direct threat to the stability and the safety of the society that we all want to live in together. No, the Civil Liberties Union is not wrong to say you always have to do this carefully. But judges have been told in the past that the only way to do this is to have a massive burden. Otherwise, you have to let the person out on bail. And what Carney said in a simple phrase is, we're going to flip that. Now it's going to be up to you to prove that it's safe to let you out on bail. And I think that makes a heck of a lot of sense.
Okay. So, Tom, before I let you go, I don't know if you heard earlier in the show, the idea, of course, we're talking now about the municipal election, saying that for a lot of people, because the undecided is still as high as it is, there's no wow factor to any of the candidates, right? So
I completely agree.
Okay, so I was fooling around on AI and put together a couple of people pretending they were running for mayor. I found one of Jean Charest, which I sent to him anyway. But Tom, I want you to hear this and tell me if this is accurate, okay? Take a listen to this.
Hello, I'm Tom Mulcair, and I want to be your mayor. I've lived in Montreal most of my life, and I know what this city needs. Better roads, less construction headaches, and getting rid of the damn cones that have sprouted on every street. I will make it happen. I remember the great city that Montreal used to be, and I will make it that again.
Tom, is that you?
No, not even close.
Okay, just checking.
Not even close.
Hey, I thought it was close. So you're not running for mayor. You've never been in municipal.
No, and I spent most of my life in Beaconsfield and in Quebec City, so no.
Okay. It was a nice try. I didn't have much time. Tom Mulcair. Tom, have a great weekend. Thank you.
Unmistakably Canadian.
It's the music that raised you.
The artists raising the bar.
Hi, this is Brian Adams.
Hey, my name's Brett Emmons. I'm from the Glorious Sons.
Hi, I'm Nelly Furtado.
Made in Canada. The station that champions Canadian music.
Loud, proud, and all yours.
No passports required. Just press play.
Tap into Made in Canada now on iHeartRadio.ca
Or the free iHeartRadio app.